Hey everybody, what's up and welcome back to The Wealthy Sailor. My name is John, and for those you don't know, I make videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. We talk about finance, we talk about business, investing, and you get to follow my journey as I try to achieve my financial goals, and I kind of talk about some of the other goals I'm working on. Today's video, though, is talking very specifically about a mistake I made. So one of the best ways I feel like teaching people things is by telling them what went wrong in the past. I think that a lot of people learn better by seeing other people's mistakes because mentally they already see that not working and they take it upon themselves to ensure that they do not make the same mistake. Also, I think that in some ways, or maybe a lot of ways, it's also a self-esteem thing. Like, people like to feel like they are doing better than other people. It's like a competition stuff. So I think that by seeing somebody else make a mistake and you avoiding that mistake, you go out of your way to make sure you don't make that mistake in order to keep that feeling that you did not make the mistake that somebody else made. And then thus you feel superior. I don't want to speak for everybody, but I do think that's at least a small part of motivation behind why some people try so hard not to fall into certain traps that other people have. So, the mistake I made. I want to talk about the worst financial purchase I've ever made. Now, I already talked about my wedding and everything, but that really wasn't one purchase. That was a series of things that I put on a loan, well, specifically a line of credit, which was a mistake, but that really wasn't one purchase. None of the single purchases really add up to very much. So I really want to talk about something else, like a boat, but I've never bought a boat. Or like something else, like I don't buy Gucci clothes, I don't buy like a boat or an airplane. I don't even when I go on vacation, I tend to plan it out in such a way that I try to save as much money as possible while I travel. So that's not really where I spent my money. So it actually took me a lot of time to try to figure it out because I don't even like buy the newest or best TVs. I actually buy refurbished TVs. So it was very difficult for me. So I put a lot of thought in this. So in the end, I determined that the worst single purchase I ever made was my 2006 Ford Explorer. So let me paint you a picture a little bit. Me and my ex-wife were living in Washington at the time, and her car and my car were both paid off. And hers was the older of the two. Hers was about 8 years older than my car was at the time. And the oil pan started leaking heavily and the head gasket started to go. So we determined it was probably better to get rid of the car. So what we decided to do was that I would give her my car and I would get the new car. Now, part of the influence on this decision was simply the fact that I was working at the time and she was not. She didn't really have to go very far where I was going to and from work every day. So we went to a couple dealerships and I wanted a Jeep. The reason I wanted a Jeep was because I always wanted an SUV and I've never been able to get one. I've always had small commuter cars because I grew up in the city and I never really made that good of money really to afford a nice car. I was driving a Chevy Aveo up until this point. So I went to the Jeep dealership and prices were just too high there, and I didn't want a new car because I knew about the way new cars depreciated in value pretty much as soon as you buy them. And then the sales guy was trying to tell me that wasn't true, so I immediately stopped. Like, I left. I'm not dealing with a salesperson that lies to me. Like, I understand that salespeople want to make as much money as possible, and I get that, but I'm not going to be lied to. So we left there. So we went to a few different dealerships, and we ended up going to one that had it was a used car dealership, but it was recommended by a Navy friend of mine, saying that they had like fair prices and stuff. So we went there, and a nice woman helped us out and everything. And we're just looking at the cars, and I found a Ford Explorer that I liked. It was a little old because this was like 2010, 2011 timeframe, and we were buying a 2006. So it was already like 5 years old, which is actually a good time to buy a vehicle. So we're looking at it and everything. I liked it, and then she's like, "Well, keep in mind that there was also this car right next to it," and it was a Hyundai Santa Fe. Now, the deal with this car was it was white, which wasn't my favorite because my Explorer was gray. But the other thing is that it was like 3 years newer with like 30,000 less miles on it. So it was very appealing, and I looked inside and it had the touchscreen, and had I bought that one, it would have been the first car I ever bought that had a touchscreen. But the thing is that I didn't end up buying that car. And the reason I didn't end up buying it was for the dumbest reason. Because I want to remind you that the newer with less mile Hyundai that was still covered under their 100,000 mile warranty was less than the Ford Explorer, which was older with more miles. But for whatever reason, I could not get over the fact that was a Hyundai. That was probably the first, and I'd like to think only time in my life where I started to become snobbish with name brands. I looked at it, and the vehicles even look somewhat similar. I mean, they're SUVs, and you know, early 2000s SUVs. They were all kind of shaped similarly. It was white, and that was my favorite color. But in literally every other way, it was a better vehicle. It had better warranty. It was cheaper. It was newer. It was better. And then it even had stuff that came with the vehicle, like a sunroof and running boards, a roof rack, and a tow package that I all had to pay for my Explorer to get added on. So it was a better vehicle, and that would have been the better purchase to make. It would have saved me a little bit of money, and it probably would have lasted longer. But for whatever reason, I'm like, I don't want a Honda. I feel like a Ford Explorer is better. Now, let me tell you about some other mistakes I made during this process. One, I didn't negotiate the price. The sticker price is what I went in there thinking, like, okay, I'm going to pay the sticker price. And then I told the saleswoman that I wanted a sunroof, I wanted a tow package, I wanted running boards and a roof rack and stuff. And she's like, okay. She's like, we can totally do that. We can totally do that. So in my mind, I was like, okay, well, I mean, it sucks that, like, I'm not really going to negotiate, but I'm getting all this stuff added on. So, it works. It's not the worst thing. I was reading the paperwork like months later and found out that they just added all that stuff onto the paperwork, and me being like 22, I just didn't read it, and didn't read it properly, I should say. Part of the reason was because when you're buying a car, you have a lot of stuff to read and sign, and the salesperson didn't put any pressure on me to read it fast. But for some reason, I didn't have the confidence, if you want to call it, to put my foot down and be like, okay, listen, I'm going to go line item by line item and reading this entire contract. So she handed it to me. I kind of skimmed through it, and I saw how much the total loan was, and I signed it. And the total loan, I knew it was going to be more than the sticker price because I knew about taxes, I knew about title transfer fees and stuff like that. But I didn't, I just didn't read it right. And that was a huge mistake on my part, because had I known that they were just going to charge me for all that stuff, I either wouldn't have gotten it, or I would negotiate down the sticker price in order to not pay as much, or at least offset the price a little bit. So now for the third mistake I made. So I asked them about certified pre-owned cars. I'm like, hey, what kind of warranty do you offer? I understand the dealer doesn't offer a warranty anymore than the manufacturer, but what do you offer? And they're like, well, you can buy a warranty package. And I've never heard of these before. That's just either it wasn't a thing when I was a kid, or for whatever reason, it just never popped up on my radar. So the way it was explained to me is they're like, oh, well, here you go. You have this warranty package. You pay $3,000 for it. It's added on to the price of the vehicle, so you don't even have to worry about it. And if you don't use it, you get that money back at the end of, I think it was like 3 years. So I thought about it. I'm like, oh, okay, that sounds good to me. Now, here's the thing with that. They take your $3,000, which you're paying interest on attached to your car loan. They collect interest on that for 3 years, hoping you don't use it, and then they give you back the principal. Meanwhile, they just collected interest off $3,000, which, if it was 10%, I mean, they just made $900 off of your investment for, relatively nothing. And it was a great system for them, because if you don't use it, you get the money back. So me as a consumer, I'm like, oh, well, I'm going to do everything I can to not have to use that warranty. So short of a transmission failing or an engine blowing up, I didn't use it at all. Like, my radiator ended up needing to get replaced. I didn't use it. I just paid cash for it. I had it set in my mind, like, I'd rather pay the $800 for a new radiator than lose my $3,000 investment. So I ended up doing that. And it was a pain to get that money back at the end of this whole process. But we ended up getting it back, and it was a pain, but we did it. So that was 3 mistakes. Now I have a 4th one. I didn't know that I should shop around for car loans. So I went to the dealership. She's like, do you have financing? I'm like, no, I do not have financing. She's like, okay, we have a place. So there was a local credit union called Kitsap Credit Union. By the way, although there's certain things I didn't look into, they took care of me. So if anybody is a member of Kitsap Credit Union, they took care of me even though I didn't know better. And this isn't a paid promotion or anything because I don't even know if they're still around. I don't know. I don't live in that area anymore. But anyway, I ended up getting a loan through them. But I didn't know what a good car loan was. So I ended up getting, I think, like 5.7% interest on this loan. Fixed rate for 7 years. I ended up paying it off in 4. But I got lucky there because I didn't know what a good interest rate was, and I didn't know I should have shopped around. What I should have done prior to going there was I should have called all the banks I'm involved with, USAA, Wells Fargo, whatever, maybe even some local, like, small credit union, like neighborhood credit unions, and I should have gotten them all to give me quotes, because since it would have all been for a car loan, it would only ping my credit once, and it would apply for all of them. That's what I should have done. Luckily, that part of my total mistake wasn't a huge factor. But I did make a series of mistakes with doing that, and the reason I'm talking about it now is because I'm actually in the market looking for a new car. My son just turned 15. I'm thinking about getting a new car before he turns 16 so that either he can buy my current vehicle off me or I can trade it in or whatever, but the option's there for him if we choose to go that route. So while I was doing some research into getting a new car, all this stuff came to mind. So my new vehicle is still going to be an SUV. I'm not married to a make or model of it at all. I do know I want it to be about 3 to 5 years old with under 50,000 miles, and that's pretty much all the stuff I want. Besides a steering wheel warmer. I don't know if you guys have driven in the cold with steering wheel warmer on it, but it is amazing. I would literally rather have that than the seat warmers. I'd rather have the steering wheel warmer. But anyway, guys, thanks for watching my video. If you made it this far, make sure you hit that like button because it helps me out a lot and it helps me grow the channel. I hope you guys learned something. Stay safe and keep saving.